Former President Donald Trump campaigned for the next year's presidential elections in New Hampshire on Tuesday. While speaking to his supporters, he vowed that if he comes to power, then he will end, and I quote, the weaponization of the Justice Department and the abuse of law enforcement to stop political dissent. He was referring to the federal indictments which accused him of mishandling the classified documents which he took from the White House. Trump has repeatedly claimed that these charges are politically motivated. Clashes broke out between police and the youth in Paris suburb on Tuesday. This came as tensions rose over the recent death of a local teenager who was shot by police during a traffic stop. According to a local prosecutor's office, the 17-year-old boy was shot dead by a police officer for not stopping his car. The police officer responsible for the shooting has been charged with homicide. A parliamentary inquiry in Australia recommended that advertising for online gambling should be banned within 3 years. It said that such advertisements are grooming children and young people to gamble. The inquiry also found that partial bans do not work and called for a phased, comprehensive ban that leaves no room for circumvention. Meanwhile, Prime Minister aid tackling online betting alone would not be enough. Gambling is a huge business in Australia, providing revenue for media organizations, bars and sports clubs alike. A member of the 6-judge Supreme Court bench hearing pleas challenging the trials of civilians in military courts in Pakistan urged the Chief Justice to reconsider the reconstitution of the bench. In an additional note, Justice Yahya Afridi urged Chief Justice Umar Atta Bandial to bring the strength of the bench to its fullest before proceeding with the petitions. This bench initially comprised 9 judges but shrank to 6 after 3 judges left the bench. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi made a strong pitch for the enactment of Uniform Civil Code. He was speaking in the central Indian state of Madhya Pradesh, where elections are due in November this year. The Indian Prime Minister said that the country could not have different laws for different categories of citizens, indicating that the government may be considering bringing a bill in Parliament that deals with the issues of marriage, divorce, adoption and inheritance. Sierra Leone President Julius Maada Bio secured victory in the presidential election with more than 56% of votes, thus avoiding a runoff against rival Samura Camara. Camara, who received 41% of votes, rejected the results, citing irregularities. International observers, including the United States, voiced concerns alleging lack of transparency in the counting process. The election, which was held on Saturday, has been tense, with violence breaking out before, during and after the vote. South Koreans will now become younger by a year as the country dropped the traditional method of calculating age. Seoul was the only East Asian country to use a method of calculating age which starts counting age of babies from the time they are in the womb. But now it will use the international system that calculates age according to a person's actual date of birth. Google-owned Waze is hitting the brakes on jobs as it merges its advertising system with Google Ads. The exact number of layoffs remains under wraps. With this move, the company aims to enhance the long-term experience of Waze advertisers by seamlessly integrating with Google Ads technology. This move comes as Google consolidates its mapping teams, bringing Waze into the Google Geo division. As per reports, Google's Geo division head, Chris Phillips, plans to spill the beans to advertisers and partners. The Indian government is reportedly charging ahead with a new plan to spark clean energy innovation. According to the Financial Times, their preparing a multi-billion-dollar subsidy scheme for companies involved in making electricity grid batteries. This jolt of financial support, totaling a whopping $2.63 billion, aims to encourage the establishment of battery cell manufacturing capacity within the country. The draft plan acknowledges that India can't just keep piling up coal-powered plants. International opinion and environmental concerns are giving coal the cold shoulder. So, by zapping up their battery game, India hopes to reduce their dependence on China for battery imports. It's a power move that combines energy transition with a charge towards self-reliance. A prolonged heat wave kept its grip on the US South on Tuesday. This came as dangerously high temperatures rising above 100 degrees Fahrenheit combined with oppressive humidity swept across wide swathes of the region. Some 62 million Americans in central Arizona, across Texas and the deep south and into Florida's panhandle are under excessive heat watches, warnings and advisories. The National Weather Service says that these warnings are expected to last until the 4th of July. The emissions from the Canadian wildfires have reached a record high as per the EU's Copernicus Atmospheric Monitoring Service. It said that wildfires, which have engulfed large swathes of western and eastern Canada, have released 160 million tons of carbon. As of June 26th, the annual emissions from the fires are now the largest for Canada since satellite monitoring began in 2003, 20 years ago. Several cities in the US have been grappling with polluted air, owing to the emissions which now have reached Spain as well. Muslim pilgrims marked the end of Arafah Day by climbing the rocky mountain of Mercy during sunset on Tuesday. This day is the most important part of the annual Hajj. It is believed that Prophet Muhammad held his last sermon on Mount of Mercy. After sunset, pilgrims moved to Muzdalifa plain, where they will gather pebbles to throw at stone columns, which they see as the devil. The ritual stoning marks the first day of Eid al-Adha, or the Feast of Sacrifice. Britain's King Charles marked the partial completion of his pet urban development project in the town of Dorchester in southwest England. This was his first visit to the community since his coronation, and he was accompanied by his wife Queen Camilla. The monarchs unveiled a bronze portrait of themselves at Queen Mother Square and opened the Duke of Edinburgh Garden. They also watched a singing performance by school children before posing for photographs.